Going to be first to the floor here. Pierce comes out with it. Hit the deck, first to the floor, making every big play for the Celtics today. Tatum knocks it away, trying to get it. Dives.
What a play by Dave Coward. Watch him dive for the ball right here. Look at this hustle.
Ben Vallis here with First to the Floor. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Alongside me, as always, is Jake Eisenberg. Jake, how's it going, buddy?
I'm good. I'm refreshing. I'm trying to, do my inner Kristaps. Imagining I'm in Miami on the beach, relaxing, resting that ankle. Yeah.
Jacked and tanned.
That's right. That's me, jacked and tanned.
I love it. Well, look, we've got a very special guest tonight joining us to wrap up All-Star Weekend and talk about the most important factors for the Celtics' upcoming stretch run. He's the play-by-play announcer for the Boston Celtics with NBC Sports Boston, Drew Carter. Drew, welcome, man. How's it going?
What's up, fellas? Great to see you again. Thanks for having me back on. I think this is my first podcast I've done multiple times.
That's right.
There you go.
Celtics track. So let's go.
We were hoping to get you as the pendulum swung backwards as you started to go another lap around the pod circuit. So I'm glad to hear that's the case.
For sure. I apologize if I'm a little tired. I'm in Bristol, Connecticut this week doing the morning Sports Center. So I was up at about 1:15 a.m. Eastern today. Yeah, to make the 2-hour drive from Boston to Bristol. I'm staying here now, and time I do Sports Center, we talk about the Celtics. It's not a coincidence, and it's not because I'm doing it. It's because we're the best.
Good.
We're one.
That's what we love to hear. Well, look, obviously you're not in Boston at the moment, Drew, but you did move there recently. How are you settling into life as a Bostonian?
Life is good, man. I mean, I feel incredibly lucky, same as the last time we spoke. That has not worn off, and I hope it never does, frankly. I tell Mike Gorman I'm coming for his mark. I'd love to get to 44 years or maybe even more than that. I say that partially in jest, but it's true. I think this is a lifetime job, and I never want to leave it. I want to retire as the play-by-play guy for the Celtics, and I think that I'd be really lucky if I could do that. And I feel like I'm starting to have a few, welcome to Boston moments. Can we swear on this podcast? I can't remember. Is that allowed?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. It's encouraged, if anything.
Good, okay. So I was walking up the stands at the Garden. This was a couple weeks ago. And, people at the Garden generally are pretty diehard, so I get recognized a lot. People ask for photos, which is awesome, and I'm always happy to do it. So it's kind of surreal. But a guy stops me. He goes, "Dude, you're doing a great fucking job, kid, dude." And that was awesome. And then that was a couple weeks after a guy from behind me. I just hear, "New announcer, Drew Carter." Taking a photo, dude. And it's like, this is perfect. I feel like I'm in an SNL sketch. So I love it. I feel like I'm fitting in.
Hell yes. I love it. I believed that I love you. I'm going to stay in Boston so much more than the Kyrie Irving one. I'll stay. So nice. We'll see. I love it, Drew. That's awesome. That I'm unsurprised that you're getting recognized and you're getting the Sullys of the world coming up to you. Hitting you with some good comments.
Yeah, you've nailed the accent as well very quickly. So that's very impressive. Love to see it. Well, look, let's start here, Drew. Jayson Tatum got asked this weekend what NBA rule he would change, rather. And he had a pretty hilarious and somewhat topical answer about rescinding technical fouls. Drew, with another somewhat lackluster All-Star weekend in the rearview mirror, what would you change about the All-Star game to make it more interesting if you were, as Bill Simmons would put it, sports czar for a day?
Fire Kenny Smith. I think that's the easiest. That would definitely help.
God damn, man.
No, I mean, look, I don't want to pile on. I know he's been getting roasted, but I think rightfully so.
Yeah.
I think he was pretty bad, especially during that Steph Sabrina thing, which was really the only good part of All-Star weekend, if you think about it. What was good aside from that? The dude shooting half-court shots for 90 seconds total? That wasn't very good. I mean, Damian Lillard winning MVP. So just to give you some perspective on how I digested the All-Star game Sunday night, I had to be awake super early, like I said. So I went to bed at halftime, or at least tried to, struggling to sleep. I was thinking about, I was having dreams about Banner 18 and riding a duck boat. And
Same.
I couldn't get to sleep. I checked the clock. I'm like, oh, it's 11:30 Eastern. The game's probably over by now. Let me just check my phone, see who won. I see East with 211 and Damian Lillard won MVP, and I'm like, is the All-Star game dead? Like, that's awful. Could there be a less interesting outcome than that? Especially, how would he give it to Halliburton? Just stop the count.
I know, yeah. Like
4 minutes in when he had 15 points in 92 seconds, just give it to him. So anyway, I think it was disappointing. I was bummed about it. I think it has potential to be really good. I'm not one of these guys who's like, oh, it's a Travis. I saw Bob Ryan from the Globe. He's like, oh my, like he basically wants these guys behind bars because they don't play the All-Star game. I'm not that aggressive about it, but I do think there's probably a way to incentivize winning that would make this more interesting. Maybe do it tournament style like they do with the Rising Stars. I thought that was great. I guess I should correct myself. I thought that was really fun. The Rising Stars with the G League team making a little run and beating the loaded team POW. Anytime POW loses, we like that in Celtics culture. Mm-hmm. But, I think there's got to be some way they can do it with the All-Star game. And the good news is, number one, Adam Silver seemed pissed. And number two, he's not the kind of guy who's like afraid to make big time changes, right? We've seen it with the play-in. We've seen it with the in-season tournament. We've seen it with the Elam ending in the All-Star game, like a televised draft. Remember when there was a time when it seemed like the televised draft, you mentioned Bill Simmons earlier. It's like, that's Bill Simmons' wet dream, but it would never happen, right? That's crazy. That's a crazy idea. Great idea, but crazy. And then they did it. And then they actually stopped doing it because people were like, this isn't that great anyway. All that to say, I think Silver is willing to take big swings, and he seemed like he was ready for a huge change last night. So we'll see. I have a lot of faith in him.
Yeah, Jake, you got anything in mind?
Well, I know in the First to the Floor Discord, we've been talking about it for the last 24 hours, trying to figure out a way to improve it. I know, Ben, you've been on, like, you give home court advantage to either the East or the West, whoever wins it. Which
why not?
So it's the most simple answer, right? That's what they do in baseball.
Yeah, but here's the problem. Boston Celtics this year on pace to win 65 games and probably clear the West as well by 4 or 5 games. Imagine East loses last night and we end up having to play the Clippers, the Nuggets, whatever, and we're 6 games clear of them in the standings, but then the Nuggets end up getting home court advantage because they won this All-Star game. That's the only thing.
Is that not spicy?
They should have played harder.
I know. It's true.
Is that not like super fucking spicy?
Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're the best team in the league that's going to have like a real gripe about not having home court, if you're that far ahead of the pack, you should have multiple All-Stars, right? And then those guys have to give a shit. And maybe if you're Trae Young, right, and you're like, I hate the Celtics, F those guys, I'm going to tank this game so they don't get home court advantage. Maybe that adds an interesting wrinkle. But, I mean, if you care about the All-Star game, you got to do something, right? And there's always going to be a but there. It's always going to be like, well, do we really want to put that much emphasis? You can't have it both ways. Like, do you want it to be a real game or not? So I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and in that scenario, say it's Jayson Tatum, the best player on the best team in the East at that point. He's the captain of the East. He's doing the draft. He gets to decide, who do I want to come and help me ensure that I've got home court advantage in the finals. I think that adds a spicy wrinkle to the draft. What about this, though, Jake and Drew? What about players on the winning team get +5 games on their 65-game eligibility counter? So Tyrese Halliburton, he's, I think, like skirting the boundaries there as far as like whether or not he'll be eligible for All-NBA and subsequently lots of additional millions of dollars. If he wins the game, he gets +5 on his counter there and becomes re-eligible for said millions of dollars. I think that's, a spicy incentive.
I like it. Yeah, I like it. That's a good way. I was thinking like it would be so hard with the schedule. Could like the teams that win, maybe you make like the schedule East West against each other only in the days after the All-Star game, and if your conference wins, you get like an extra day off. Like all the Eastern Conference games start on Saturday as opposed to Friday, so an extra day off, an extra day to go wherever they want to go for a day. Yeah, or you pay them all $500K like you did for the in-season tournament. It's like, and that seems to work, which is shocking to me considering and maybe it doesn't work quite as well because we're not trying to pay off Luke Cornett's mortgage like we were in the in-season tournament. But these guys seem to still care about $500K despite making 40+ mil.
How about you get an extra trip to Miami or Atlanta? You get to trade out like a Portland or a Memphis trip for one of those destinations everyone wants to go to. How do you guys feel about the 65 game rule, by the way? Are you in favor of that?
We support the team with the Iron Man, touch wood, Jayson Tatum, who seems to be not bound by such boundaries. So I'm largely indifferent, given that it's irrelevant to our favorite person on the planet Earth, Jayson Tatum. I don't know, Jake, have you got a more critical view?
I think there should be a limit. Maybe 65 is a tiny bit high, but that's also like it's not that high. And being durable is incredibly valuable. Like. Yeah. Joel Embiid, even before he had got injured, the Sixers were 3-7 in the 10 games he'd missed or something. It's like, if you play all those games, you're going to most likely win those games. There's legit, it's just like a very tangible value. Yeah. If you're on the court, it's very valuable. Maybe 65 is a little too high, but I like that there's a cutoff. And then and people are like, oh, Tyrese Halliburton's going to miss out on the Supermax. Again, I'm not crying too many tears.
World's smallest violin for
I'm like, oh no, the $200 versus $300 million contract. I'm not too worried about that. So play maybe that you alter it where it's like if it's one injury that you miss for 10 in a row, it caps at like 5 for the same injury or something like that. But I don't know. What do you think, Drew?
I don't know. I go back and forth on it. I think it's a good idea, kind of ham-fisted execution with just the raw number. I do agree though, Jake. I like how simple it is to follow. But the thing is, the NBA is already adjudicating whether injuries are real or not. Like they're handing out fines in this new load management program they're doing, or player participation program. So if you're going to do that, then why can't you extend that same jurisdiction to the 65 game rule, especially if it is going to affect guys' contracts, which that is another rule, by the way, that I think needs to be changed. Like if you're Tyrese Halliburton, you're already signed. I'm kind of confused by the mechanics of that rule. And I think it was put in place for, let's be honest, a guy who was an exception in Derrick Rose. Like that dude was an outlier. It's very rare a guy will win an MVP when he's 21 or 22. So, I think they have some tweaking to do with that. And I think the same thing could be said for the All-Star game. And maybe that 5-game thing is a good idea, like toward the 65 game limit. I just feel like then you're taking a step forward and 2 steps back because you're sort of undercutting another one of your like inventions this year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. Maybe there'll be like exceptions like there are with the cap. I don't know, personality or injury specific or team specific exceptions, based on injury history or injury severity or the way in which your injury came about. I'm not sure.
Not to like get too sidetracked on this, but I remember when we were playing Philly, we were at Philly. It was like mid-November, and Embiid was questionable, like really questionable. And I actually can't remember if he ended up playing. I don't think he did. I think he missed that game. And I basically hunted down Brad Stevens in the tunnel, like cornered him, accosted him. And I was like, can you explain the player participation rule to me so we can explain it to the viewer tonight? Because it seems like nothing has changed. Like, are they going to get fined for this? How does this work? And Brad is probably the wrong person to ask about that generally because our guys don't sit. Like we don't have anybody who really manages their load aside from Kristaps Porzingis. And, I think, but see, that's the thing is like, I don't know how this works. He has a really checkered injury history.
Yeah.
So does that lower the bar for, what has to happen before they get fined? Nobody understands the player participation. I don't even think the teams do. Like you just can't write DNP old like Pop did that one time for Tim Duncan. I think that's the only thing we know.
I love DNP old. What did the Heat do? They did like DNP for like Kyle Lowry and Kevin Love to get some younger guys. I forget. It was a very creative way to do it. Yeah. But the Celtics aren't a team that typically really has to worry about this. Look, and they just need that. They're trying to get these star players to play. But if you're Kawhi, it's like why would you push it when I'm someone who hasn't been able to play like a full season in like 4 years? Like why? And now he has an adductor injury, and is that because? And then you've got the fucking the piece of research that the NBA did that like back-to-backs don't impact injury. It's like sure, like I don't know, man. I'm not a scientist, which everybody here is very aware of. But like. I don't know. The more basketball you play, the more likely you are to get injured. Feels like pretty sound logic, and like the NBA led research shockingly said that. Yeah, but like we watch it with our own teams, like guys that play on back to backs. Like the odds, the lines for betting are lower. Teams don't perform quite as well. Like the Celtics are like one of the best teams in the league at like 15-4 or something over the last 2 seasons on back to backs. But like that's because they have a bunch of young guys that are awesome. It's like anyway, we can.
Well,
there's too much meat on that bone. But I mean, the NBA has like a serious issue as they've addressed with guys not caring about whether it's a regular season game or the All-Star game, whatever it is. Like that's a problem. And how do you get guys to give a shit again? I mean, there's a video circulating from the All-Star game like 20 years ago where Kobe and Stephon Marbury are going back and forth, and it's competitive and it's fun and it's intense. It's like, how do we get that to happen again? Is this just soft-ass generation or what? I don't know.
I think I saw on Twitter today, like this is LeBron's fault. This is LeBron's fault for the friendification of the NBA. I also saw Nick Wright. He was, stop me though. The worst person you know makes a comment that you agree with. But
you're kind of like the Australian Nick Wright, Jake. I think.
I'll do it, dude. I'll be the Australian Nick Wright. But he was basically saying rings culture has effectively, that's like a flow-on effect of this, right? Like everybody's like the Celtics have won more playoff games than any other team in the NBA over the past 6 seasons, which is cool. Also hurts that we've won so many playoff games and not won a title. But the easiest way to clown the Celtics, for likes and whatever, is like they can't get over the hump. They're not clutch, etc., etc. But like there's no value placed on like real success in the NBA. Like that's really hard to do. Like Jaylen and Jayson have like the most playoff wins under a certain age, and they're kind of penalized for it. Joel Embiid, we do it on this podcast, can't get out of the second round, but like no matter what he does in the regular season, 70 points, whatever it is, it's always diminished because it's the regular season, and then that flows on to the All-Star game. It's almost like tall poppy syndrome, Ben, in Australia. True, like we have this thing in our culture where it's like tall poppy syndrome. As soon as one person like tries to be different or cool or try something, it's like in our culture to be like, look at this fucking dude like trying. And which
piece of shit.
Yeah, and like it's kind of like the All-Star game. Like if someone had gone out there and like tried on defense, up possession after possession, everybody would have made fun of them. It's like
you're so right.
So I don't know how you fix it exactly, but yeah.
Do you remember when there was that video off-season workout? Joakim Noah and Devin Booker were playing together, right? And Book's like, we're not doubling in this. And Joakim's like, yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. It's like Joakim Noah's a relic, dude. He's a blast from the past. Guys like that just don't seem to really exist anymore. And but one little sidebar on what you just said. I know we're throwing out the rundown here. Sorry, Ben. But
you're good.
I'm so sick of the discourse around the Celtics being like they can't perform in the playoffs. I'm like, was I dreaming when they were in the finals 2 years ago and they were in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals last year? I know, like, sort of got popped in the mouth by Miami, and that was embarrassing. And I know Game 7 was really disappointing last year, but they were one win away from going back to the finals for a second consecutive year. And it seems like all I hear is like, why can't Jayson Tatum win MVP? Oh, because he hasn't won an NBA championship, so nobody trusts him. Why are we worried about the Celtics late game offense? Oh, we've seen it so many times on the playoffs. How many teams win a championship every year? One. Really hard to do. And by the way, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are in their mid-20s. When did LeBron win his first? When did Jaylen Brown win his first? I'm just so sick of this idea that like the Celtics choke and shit down their legs in the playoffs every year. It's just not true.
Yep. Hey, dude, you came to the right place.
Welcome to the club. Well, it's honestly, Drew, it's very endearing to see that you're like fully indoctrinated into the like lifelong frustrations of current Celtics fans. So that's really, really good to see. Go ahead, Jake.
I'll make one comment and then we'll move on. But like, it is really just purely a victim of their own success. Like, like them being the 1 seed and Brad and Danny doing an awesome job early, and Tatum going to the conference finals and Jaylen going to the conference finals at that age has completely fucked up the discourse around them, because it's just like Steph Curry, like the Warriors barely got out of the first round until he was like 25, and so there's nothing they can do about it really besides win. The good thing is like it doesn't obviously like really impact them, and all they continue to do is get better. And so like, look, it's just they've got the blinders on. But I do feel kind of like this on a regular basis. I feel like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones every day.
This is Greeny every day on Twitter.
Dude. Yeah, Greeny and me just going to war every day about the misinformation on Twitter. But all right, we'll jump back to the All-Star game and then we'll get into what we want to see from the Celtics for the rest of the season. But we'll do a quick draft here. Favorite or least favorite things from the All-Star weekend. I feel like we probably covered the effort aspect, but Drew, I'll let you go first. What was your favorite thing from All-Star weekend?
Well, see, because I have the first pick here and it's a Celtics podcast, I feel like I have to take the left-handed Jaylen Brown dunk with the
off the board.
There's layers to it, guys. There's layers to it. Michael Jackson's from Indiana. Jaylen Brown, we know about the discourse around his left hand. I just think that it's really refreshing when people just take a narrative on head on. Like for Jaylen Brown, I don't even know if he's ever talked about the fact that he knows people think he can't dribble with his left hand. But he basically came out and said, I hear you, F you. Watch this, And so I really like that. Plus the fact that he was in it at all, I think is really cool. So that's going to be my first pick.
Love it.
Yeah. And of course, Michael Jackson is from Gary, Indiana. Is that a dig at Gary Washburn? Who's to say? Certainly not me. But yes. It's there. It's there for the conspiracy theorists. Jake, who's next? Is it me or you?
I'll go. I'll take the reins here. You mentioned it earlier. Sabrina versus Steph was easily like the best event, and the 3-point contest in general is the best event now because everybody tries, and that's all we care about as sports fan is competition. And the Steph versus Sabrina thing was legitimately sick. I thought it was awesome. I was like really locked in. I bet on Sabrina because I'm a psychopath, but. She did really well, man. Like I would love to see that be like a staple of the All-Star game going forward. Like maybe it's like Dame and Steph versus Caitlin Clark and Sabrina once Caitlin Clark comes into the league or something like that. Because then it's like legit. Like people care about it for a variety of reasons, and both competitors are really into it, and that's all we want. And so that for me was easily number one.
Yeah, definitely, like you said, Drew, ruined slightly, not to put the words in your mouth, but by Kenny the Jet Smith. It's just his take on the situation, the narrative that he constructed there was just unwelcome, and there seemed like a huge lack of awareness from his part. But certainly that moment, it felt like it was a huge bringing together of a more collective cohort of basketball fans. And like the whole shoot mentality. It doesn't matter like what league you play for, what level you are, what your walk in life is. Like if you can shoot the fucking ball, then like you can go up against anyone, including Steph Curry. So that was awesome to see. My favorite moment that I'll take is definitely Jayson Tatum beating Larry Bird, which is just so good. There were not enough tissues in my house to dry my eyes after the man tears that I cried. Thanks, Jake, for clarifying. And here's what Jayson Tatum had to say after that moment.
He was in the locker room before the game. Him, Adam Silver, and Dr. J, they were talking to us. And, once they got done, I thought I was going to be able to shake his hand. I turned around and he was gone. And I remember I was saying, I was like, man, I never met Larry Bird. I've never been in the same room as him. As crazy as that sounds, it's never worked out. So Taylor, our PR girl, saw him before I was sitting on the sideline and she grabbed me. She was like, he's over there. And I got a chance to go meet him and tell him how, much of an honor it was to meet him. And, he told me he was looking forward to meeting me. So that was crazy to hear him say that. He's a lot taller than I thought he was. But obviously what he means to the game, what he means to the city of Boston and the Celtics. And, he's the ultimate Celtic. So it was an honor to meet him.
Any thoughts, Drew, on those two greats meeting each other?
Yeah, I guess, this is like a dead giveaway that I'm kind of new here. I had no idea that they had never met. Was that common knowledge?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I kind of knew, but and then again, back to the Jon Snow meme, Celtics fans can't have nice things because as soon as that happens, everybody's like, what does this mean? Is this like...
Oh, it's a big problem, Larry Bird.
Larry Bird didn't even... Yeah, Larry Bird didn't even go to the top 75 players of all time thing. He doesn't go to anything. He doesn't leave Indiana. That's the only reason he came to anything was because It was in Indiana. So I knew that. It was funny. Tatum talking about meeting Larry Bird was like what it would be like if I was to meet Tatum. Like my mum was like, he's over there. It's Tatum. It's an honor to meet you. Much taller than I would think in real life. I think the only difference is he would be like, I was really looking forward to meeting you too. Maybe then. We have received a couple likes and a couple of tweets here and there, but so we're same. Larry Bird, Jayson Tatum, first and four.
What do you think they said to each other? Was it like the MJ Larry Bird?
Yeah. Oh, dude, yeah.
I like to think.
Can you imagine?
Go win a chip, and then we can talk about you being a top 5 Celtic.
But hey, I think it's cool that they're meeting for the first time. It feels. I don't know. I mean, I tweeted this out. What do you believe in this shit or not? But it feels like a good omen. Like it feels like kind of like the passing of a torch. I wanted to tweet that, JT's been touched by basketball Jesus now, but I thought my dad would get mad about the religious imagery. So instead I photoshopped the creation of man painting by Michelangelo. Probably even more sacrilegious, but whatever. It's cool. And, I hope that Larry Bird seems like kind of a recluse anyway. But I do think the Celtics have done a really great and deliberate job of involving alumni this year. That was a huge story in the preseason. I think it's continued during the season. So who knows? Maybe they can get Larry back in the fold. I think that'd be cool. I'd like to meet him. Shit. Come to the Garden, please.
Yes.
I have been to the Sistine Chapel, by the way, and can confirm that this is on the ceiling. So very, very good to see. Well done, Drew.
Made that in Snapchat, fellas. Made that in Snapchat. Don't even have Photoshop.
Okay.
Amazing. Modern skills for a modern man. Least favorite moment of the All-Star weekend, Drew?
Oh my God. I mean, where do you even begin? I think Damian Lillard winning MVP. I'm just not a fan. Just not a fan. I think the collective, circle jerk for Damian Lillard's loyalty in Portland was completely out of control for me. Like he made a crap ton of money and still demanded a trade and never won anything anyway. And I think a lot of that is a reflection on him. So I'm just not a fan of Damian Lillard generally. I think he's a great player, but it's just boring when he wins the MVP. Also, it's funny that, this is like an honorable mention here. Karl Anthony Towns scores 50 in a loss again.
That was so funny.
Yeah.
You had 31 in the fourth quarter and they lost. It's like, oh my God, no wonder Bob Ryan was seething when he sent that. That was like Karl Anthony Towns, the modern generation personified.
Yeah, man, that's why the alt cast was the way to go for me. On night one, it was Vince Carter and Jamal Crawford, and so I didn't actually hear any of the Kenny Smith stuff until afterwards. So I actually enjoyed the whole thing until I saw it afterwards. But then, the first half of the All-Star game, I'm watching the Reggie, Candace, and I'm forgetting the announcer's name off the top of my
Brian
head.
Anderson.
Yeah, that's right. And they were good, but I was like, the game it's just boring. So I flipped over to the alt cast, and it was Draymond, Barkley, and Taylor Rooks. And they had their own moments of political incorrectness.
They did. They certainly did.
Oh man. But they were it was similar to the podcast vibe. They were just talking shit. And Draymond was like, oh, this is old times for Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota. Cat has 50, but they're down 20. It's that was actually more fun. This is not necessarily our favorite or our least favorite thing, but did you guys see Tyrese Halliburton and his two voices?
Oh my God.
Going around?
How bizarre is that?
So I got it here.
I think for the more casual basketball fan, it wasn't necessarily appealing. Post basketball is not appealing unless it's Jokic or Joel or Shaq. You know what I mean?
You have two different voices.
I do. People say that all the time.
Dude, I was listening to JJ Redick. So he went on JJ Redick's podcast. And I'm like, oh, they fucked up the mic. Nice job, Tommy Alter. And then I saw it happens every time. It's he says he can't control it. I've never seen
Crazy. Yeah. It's like Tourette's, but voice up and down. I know. Insane.
I've seen speculation there's a septum issue. Maybe he needs to go see a sinus doctor or something like that. Because that shit's not right.
Yeah.
Best of luck to him.
I'm a big fan of Tyrese. Hey, real quick on the Altcast stuff. Couple things. Number one, the Twitter discourse. Maybe this was actually my favorite part of the night. The Twitter discourse around the Altcast was hysterical. I saw someone that line Draymond said was pretty funny, but someone said Draymond sees Taylor Rooks and starts acting like Dave Chappelle.
Dude, it was like he came back and he was like he stumbled his way through like I usually have to hang out with Ernie, but you're nicer and pretty. I was like, dude, just leave that poor lady.
Somebody pour cold water on this guy.
Leave her alone.
On a more serious note, the San Francisco hate to me is just out of pocket. I had never been to San Francisco until after COVID. The first time I went was last May, and so I've never saw it before, and everyone says it was way better before the pandemic, but I think it's still awesome. And there are people who are down on their luck everywhere,
of course,
and they're also still human beings. So that I think that goes without saying, but I thought that was pretty lame. And same for Indy. Indy's cool. We spent a lot of time in Indy this year, and I liked it. So anyway.
Yeah, too many guffaws from the announcing for an All-Star weekend for people at that level of the game.
Also, like the fact that Draymond Green has been suspended all year and then he's like in the middle of everything is just like, oh man, positive reinforcement for that guy. That's what we need. He's gonna, I don't know what he's gonna elbow Jayson Tatum in the back of the head the next time they play now.
You got a least favorite moment, Jake? Did we get you already?
Oh no, I think we can leave it on Tyrese and then let's move on.
Well, can I just add that the glaring lack of Derek White, which was notable to me, especially in a game that was not particularly interesting to a large group of people. You add some Derek White, suddenly you've got the hustle, the tenacity, the drive to win and make things interesting and compel us all with his beautiful smile. There was a glaring lack of Derek White in this game. So I think, it's hopefully the last time he's not named an All-Star. But we do have to talk about the Jaylen Brown dunk contest. We'd be remiss not to because obviously great current Boston Celtic as we run highlights of the dunks here on YouTube for the audio listeners. I guess it was a pretty underwhelming experience there. And correct me if I'm wrong, Drew. It was exciting to have one of our guys in the dunk contest, but just objectively, the dunks were nothing to write home about. Did you take anything positive away from the Jaylen Brown dunk contest experience?
Well, we're showing the Terrence Clark jersey. I thought that was pretty touching. And that was really cool. Obviously with the Boston connection, Terrence, being from Dorchester. And I thought that was a really nice touch from JB. And it's again, he is really aware, and that it sounds obvious, but I think his level of awareness maybe is higher than any other NBA player. So I thought that was really neat. The left-handed dunk we talked about earlier, I thought it was funny how people will take any chance they can to go after the Celtics, right? Again, cue up the GIF with Jon Snow. That's just how it is. And so of course, Jaylen Brown misses a dunk, and here we go again with the discourse. It's just I do think that the dunk contest has lost so much juice, and I saw a few people say hey, maybe Jaylen Brown, maybe that changes everything. I'm like, it won't. It won't. Sorry to be a cynic, but it's not going to happen. I feel like we've had, here and there a big name player like John Wall was in it once. It happens where once in a blue moon, a big name player will do it and nothing changes. So I don't know. It's just such a Debbie Downer. The All-Star game sucks and the dunk contest sucks, but it's just kind of where we are. So Adam Silver, get in the lab, brother.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, things that are, I don't know. That's why whatever the 3-point contest, that, if that works, then you got to start to reverse engineer it from there. Yeah. The good thing is with Jaylen, he listened to me for the most part. I was just stick to windmills, power, nothing too complicated. Just complete your dunks. The Terrence Clark thing was incredible. I thought they changed the Celtics. Firstly, the broadcast missed Jaylen's first dunk, which what's going on? What are we doing?
Would never happen on NBC Sports Boston.
Of course
never.
Not.
Of course.
And so I thought the dunks were good. But he just went a little off the tracks. He should have kept the D Brown thing a little more straightforward.
Yes.
Jaylen just keep it simple, and then the dab afterwards. It was just kind of hilarious that he still tried to do it even after he dunked it.
Oh shit!
Yeah, he messed that up. He messed that up.
But I like the Terrence, objectively, when they just do the dunks, windmills through the legs, they're cool. I think the expectations have just kind of got out of control for the dunk contest. I was at the Aaron Gordon, Zach LaVine one in Toronto, and so I don't know, like if you're a dunker, just go back and watch the best ones and just like replicate, dunk from far away. I don't know, just do the things that people seem to like and go from there. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and that's all. That's all really.
Yeah, I enjoyed it because it was that guy, but I also felt at the
it.
same time self-conscious knowing that the majority of the NBA fan base was not into it. But look, we're going to come right back in a minute and talk about the stretch run for the Boston Celtics. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/Boston and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So before we get to the upcoming stretch run, Drew, I got to ask, because Wick came out and said something along the lines of revealing that a documentary crew is following the Boston Celtics around this season, quote, Last Dance style, which is probably a poor choice of words.
Bad choice of words.
You're obviously close to the team. You're right there. You're announcing the majority of, or all of away games. Have you noticed this documentary crew around the team at all? Has that stood out as peculiar to you, or is there no frame of reference given that it's your first season with the team?
Well, it makes a lot of sense that O'Shea Brissett carries a camera around everywhere he goes now. Maybe he's part of the documentary crew. I don't know. I mean, I've seen guys filming stuff that looks like for a documentary, but there's also that Netflix show about Jayson Tatum, right?
True.
Right.
And so one of the games I saw them filming at, they were playing somebody else who's also featured in that documentary. So that's what I assumed it was for, but maybe it was for this other thing. Here's what I'll say about Wick. I've never met an owner, and not like I know that many owners, but I've never seen or met an owner who seems to care as much as he does about the team winning. And I think that's to his credit. I think that colors a lot of the decisions he makes, like spending a buttload of money on his team. He was on the broadcast a couple days before Christmas when we played the Clippers and smoked them at the crib. And then they obviously got revenge a little bit later, but he smoked them on December 23rd. And Wick came on the show in the second quarter with Donald Faison, of all people, of Scrubs fame and T-Mobile commercials fame. Those guys are collaborating on a new NBC sitcom. So anyway, all that to say, Wick was on the broadcast, and a guy went under Tatum twice.
Yes.
I think there was a flagrant issued, and Wick was like pissed. Like, I thought Wick was going to jump down from the concourse and fight like Marcus Morris or whoever it was. So Wick definitely cares a lot, but you're probably right, Ben. That is maybe not the best word choice.
Yeah, no.
Look, as you said, Wick's spending a lot of money. He's just trying to make new revenue streams here. He's like, I got a lot of tax bills coming in the next couple of years. We got to get, as soon as that show comes out with the Scrubs guy, we all got to have that thing just playing in the background. And it's just, we're going to get that thing syndicated, this documentary. There's so many cameras around these guys all the time. Like, I'm not surprised you wouldn't notice anything different. It's like they all like Tatum has Brett Hampton, and a lot of them have like their own guys anyway. So like I don't even know how different it would be. But yeah, not the best choice of words. It's gonna look sick though. If they win.
Is this a Celtics produced documentary, or is it someone else?
I get the sense it's like we'll let you in behind closed doors. So I think there's an outside production crew. I'm totally speculating here. It's similar to The Last Dance, where it's like an independent company producing it, funded by Netflix, and then they're allowed in beyond closed doors to saw the pilot. It was pretty bad. Well, that doesn't bode well for everything I've just said, DJ Daniel. Thank you, though.
DJ, was it worse than the All-Star game? What would you rather watch?
And we all watched that. So yeah the bar's low.
Yeah. I'm hoping that's the sitcom show, not the documentary show.
Oh, definitely the sitcom.
That's a good point. Scrubs guy, as you called him.
While we're on the topic of documentaries, you see what I'm wearing here? My NBC Paris 2024.
Oh, sick.
Oh, hell yeah.
So NBC Sports Boston, of course, an NBC station. That's where I got this. I can't reveal, I think, anything beyond this, but I'm just going to say, make sure you're following us on social media, NBC Sports Boston and the Celtics specific account. There's a project in the works that is, I have not been this excited about something in a long, long time. It is a documentary style feature, and people are going to love it. Guarantee.
Wow.
Guarantee. So keep an eye. I think later in the spring, we're going to be announcing that.
Okay. We're getting scoops here, Drew. This is
we will be there.
Yeah.
Whatever it is,
we'll keep an eye on that. That sounds amazing as just rabid content consumers of all things basketball and sports and certainly Celtics as well. That sounds really exciting. Jake, do you want to tee us up for the final segment here?
All right. Final stretch. Less than 30 games left. Celtics were up to a 98% chance of securing the 1 seed in the East via
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah.
According to who?
Via playoffstatus.com. Our schedule's gotten easy. 6-game lead is like insanely difficult to come back from with that amount of time left. Like, if we kept up the same pace, the Cavs would have to go undefeated pretty much in order to catch us. And even if we drop off, it's going to be really hard because we also have the tiebreaker against the Cavs. Anyway, final stretch. It's going to be relatively difficult, I think, to manufacture like high level like effort at times. I think but like human nature. Yeah. But like, what do we want to see kind of as a collective or individually? I'll start with Tatum. I personally have loved the playmaking leap that we've seen in the past like 10 games or so, averaging 7 assists per game over the last 9, up to 4.8 on the season, inching closer to our first Jayson Tatum 5 assist season, which would be awesome. Like last 10 games, he's at 29, 8, and 7, which is just absurd play. So for me, Tatum, it's the playmaking and specifically the short roll passing, because if he's got that nailed for the playoffs, gets the offense going, we get ourselves out of the mud in like tight spots. For me, Tatum, can we have this playmaking leap hold?
Jake, will you say that stat line over that recent stretch again? Because it made me hot. I want to hear it again.
Say it slowly and sensually.
29, 8, and 7 over his last 9 and shooting 51, 36, 91. So yeah, everybody.
Heavy breathing.
No one stand up.
Oh, I know. Crazy that it would be his first 5 assist season.
Yeah.
You know, what I want to see from him is, and I think you've done a really good job on social media highlighting this, guys. His defense is really freaking good and pretty underrated, I think, at this point of his career. When he first came into the league and he was not the first option on the team, I think he got more credit as a defender, somewhat, ironically. Now that he's the first guy, the conversation starts and ends with his offense. But I think my favorite Tatum moment of the season actually came in a loss, and it had nothing to do with offense. It was when he clamped Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the fourth quarter after he was cooking us for the first 3 quarters and cooking good defenders too. Like D. White and Drew Holiday, the best defensive backcourt in the league, but Shai's just so slippery and crafty. You need to put size on him. And I thought when Tatum took that assignment, I was really impressed. And I was like, hey, there's reason number 35 why it's different this year. It just seems like those guys, he and Jaylen, are just really willing to do what's necessary to win. It doesn't really matter if they score 30. So I'd like to see more of that. I think you're right about tough to manufacture effort, but the beauty of our team is these guys actually really like basketball. Like, as simple as that sounds, you don't always know that with the stuff we talked about earlier in the show. I think our guys just love to play. And so I think we won't have a problem generating the effort. The only thing we might see is guys resting a little bit more because, I think the biggest concern is health, especially with a history like with KP. But when they're playing, they're going to be playing. That's a guarantee.
People want to hear nicknames as well, so I'll say as I circle back on some Tatum stuff. Big Juice, Taco J, all common nicknames that you know, Drew, so we won't try and hammer those home too hard like we did House Money, but I'll say the pull-up.
Big Deuce or Big Juice? I couldn't tell with your Aussie accent.
Big Deuce? Am I mispronouncing it? Yeah, Deuce.
I thought I heard Deuce. I was like, that's a new one.
It's a dialect thing, clearly. The pull-up 3, 44.1% in January, 33.3% in the last 5 games. So that has dropped off a little bit. And Jake, you mentioned it, especially with regards to the short roll passing, the threat of the pull-up 3, the double, like sort of jumping over the screen at Jayson Tatum and opening up that pocket of space for that short roll pass is huge. The threat of the pull-up 3 needs to sort of remain just that, a threat for that look to be there for Tatum. Especially at half-court offense in the playoffs, we're looking for little seams like that to open up to have effective offense when the game slows down a little bit. So for Tatum, that needs to remain the case. I had a little interaction with Drew Hanlon on Twitter before we went live here, where he talked about like going in to Boston and meeting up with Jayson Tatum midway through the season and correcting the height of his shot pocket. And then since then, you can track the data, the percentage of his 3-point looks from that point onwards have gone up exponentially. So hopefully, maybe we need another visit from Drew Hanlon based on these last 5 games. But yes. That's a huge stat that I'm looking at trending towards the playoffs. Drew Carter. Jaylen Brown, obviously another prominent player for the Celtics. Is there something specifically from him individually that you're looking for this final stretch run?
Just consistency. There have been stretches this season where it's like, wow, Jaylen Brown has taken a huge leap. And then there have been stretches this year, starting with that Clippers loss, and really going through the All-Star break where he just did not look very good. It looked like he was going back to his old habits, oh shit, here we go again, shooting a low percentage and turning the ball over and probably shooting a little bit more than is necessary. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this. I don't know if you saw, but NBA University is one of my favorite accounts on Twitter. They put out that the Celtics are like plus 16.6 per 100 when Jaylen Brown isn't on the floor. And I found that interesting. There's a lot of noise in those numbers, and you can never really take them at face value. Like, we all love Derek White, but none of us thinks Derek White is the best player in the NBA. As great as he is, and he's leading the league. And maybe you do.
I think Jay does, but
yeah,
I digress.
You might. I don't want to speak for you, but I think there's a lot of noise in those numbers generally. But I think there is something there where I think when you have both Jays on the floor at once, and this has been a problem, since they became the guys, but there is a little bit of my turn, your turn that can happen. I think we're a lot better with that this year than the team has been in the past. But there can be a little bit of that. It can be a little sticky. When one of those guys is out there, I don't worry about it. But when they're both out there, it can be like they're taking turns. And the team is just too good for that. And I think 90% of the time, they've been really good about sacrificing and not going into their ISO hero ball type BS. But, you have too many good options to take bad shots. And so that I just want to see a little bit less of that from really both those guys, but specifically Jaylen.
Yeah, I think that Clippers game, Jaylen, what I loved from him this year was he's played the best defense of his career this year, and he's like made it a legit mental focus to make the right play more than he ever has before. And to me, it looked like him and Drew Holiday in particular were the two guys that really wore down towards the All-Star break. And that speaks to maybe why that Jaylen didn't play in that Brooklyn game. Those numbers, I do get it. And obviously the Brooklyn game, the Celtics go nuts. Jaylen Brown doesn't play. How much of that is because Jaylen Brown doesn't play? He also didn't play in that Grizzlies game. They won by 40. But
I think we still would have won those games by a lot if Jaylen had played.
I think so. The net rating stuff, obviously, you want to combine eye tests and the numbers. Jayson Tatum for the first time, really in the last 3 or 4 years, is not at the elite of the elite of EPM and some of these advanced numbers that are kind of catch-all. And it's okay, well, is Tatum playing worse, or is it he's actually just taking a step back here? Because last year he was elite across a lot of that stuff, and now he's clearly made a change to his approach this season, and so has Jaylen. So I don't know. To me, it doesn't matter. What really matters is those 5 guys, and what do the numbers say when those 5 guys are together. There is a little bit to it, I think, just the way the ball moves without Jaylen out there, because you're probably replacing Jaylen with Horford a lot of the time, and in those spots, and who's just a great ball mover. But when you get to the playoffs, the ball is gonna slow down anyway, and that's why Jaylen Brown historically has been such a good playoff player, because the game's about a bucket a lot of the time, and he's able to get those.
Yeah, and the thing I've got down for JB is just late game reps. And I think that, and Joe has kind of talked about this in some of his post-game presses, is a lot of it is kind of experimentation for Jaylen Brown in these late game, crunch time moments, to make sure that he has, if not the full capability, then at least the repetitions and the practice to execute in these moments, because he hasn't always. And a huge part of that is Kristaps Porzingis. And we said it on a recent pod, Jake, but like, who would have thought the Latvian Moses, Kristaps Porzingis, is the guy who comes and brings the best out of our guy, Jaylen Brown. And Drew, I have to ask, just as a side note, like the name Cookies and Cream, like you're a big nickname guy. We know this. Cookies and Cream gets revealed to the world. I have to imagine that this is your response in...
It is a gift.
Because, like, just these things, these memes, they write themselves, and suddenly this whole pathway is opened up to you from a broadcast perspective, rather, where you can like take this Cookies and Cream thing wherever you want to take it. And I think, unfortunately, we haven't had that many road games since then. But like, can you talk about your reaction to the revelation of that nickname, or where you're thinking of maybe taking it on the broadcast?
Well, I sort of felt like Mark Wahlberg and the other guys, like, I'm a peacock, you got to let me fly. Like, when that nickname got revealed, I didn't call another game for like 3 weeks.
I know. Crazy.
A couple people tweeted at me, like, Drew waiting to use this on a call. It's like the guy, Pablo Escobar in Narcos, I think. Waiting. And so we've had one game, and I think I might have said it. And, we've got some stuff in the holster, like, I don't know, lactose intolerant. There's some
nice. There we go.
In there, and milkshakes for everybody, something like that. I think it's cool how the Celtics official social media presence has really embraced it. Like, they made the wallpaper, they decorated the lockers. I think our social media team, and I'm not just saying this because like I know those people and travel with them, I'd say this regardless. I think objectively they've been like stepping it up this year. I think, one of the best, if not the best in the NBA. And it's really fun to see them like embrace that nickname. It's also awesome that Missoula came up with it.
It is cool.
Mm-hmm.
That might be my favorite element of the entire thing, because I don't know. Missoula's public persona and who he is behind the scenes is a little Belichickian, I think. He really and I've gotten a chance to get to know Joe a little bit, and I'm grateful for that. And it's not like we're best friends, but it's not like I see a real different side of him. But I do think...
You're not doing jiu-jitsu together? Hasn't called you up for a couple of rolls or anything like
you're
that?
not like scurrying up his back in the Kaizen gym there?
Yeah, I'm a rainbow belt jiu-jitsu. I'm a beginner. I kind of want to try it, actually. I think that could be fun, give us something to connect on. But, I'm not saying like I'm boys with Missoula, but I do feel like because I'm around him, I get the chance to see a little bit different side of him. And, I'm not surprised that he came up with that nickname, but I'm glad that everybody else is realizing like, hey, this guy's actually kind of funny and like has a personality and clearly clicks with the team. And those guys are like a microcosm of one of the reasons I think we're going to win the championship is the guys just love each other and love playing with each other. And that's obvious.
Yeah, they've been awesome. I'm a tiniest bit concerned we're gonna overdo it. So I think this All-Star break came at a good time. So it's like you know what I mean.
When you say we're gonna overdo it, you mean I'm gonna overdo it on the broadcast?
Yeah. Do you mean probably specific to Cookies and Cream or what?
Yes,
what are you talking about
as a collective Celtics group, like Twitter, on everywhere. Like I'm just we got it's like anything. You gotta, and Drew, I mean, you know it better than anybody. You I'm sure you'll nail the balance perfectly.
Probably not.
But yeah, the Porzingis side of it, I mean, yeah. So look, the Latvian Moses we came up with because the way that he impacts this Celtics offense, the way that he creates space is essentially the same as parting of the Red Sea. Like the pick and pops that this guy does, like out to the 30-foot, like Horford can stretch the floor. Porzingis is like another level. The way that teams freak out with his vertical spacing, like, and guys just double team Porzingis, and all of a sudden Derek White's got an open lane for a wide open dunk.
Yeah. And
then our Latvian viewer Pete here informed us of a Latvian legend, a la the Greek gods. The Bear Slayer is an historical figure. Yeah, historical figure in Latvian law. Here he is, the official
nice.
guy, and then the 2024 version, obviously. Thank you
of course.
That's Red's number, isn't it?
I didn't.
It's an homage. It's an homage to Red.
Yeah.
For me, the one thing I would like to see KP work on is his ability to deal with stretch bigs himself. I think, and that's just the nature of stretch bigs are hard to deal with, which is why they are so valuable in the NBA. Going back to that OKC Thunder game, he's a little in between his contests and his closeouts. I want to see him clean up how he deals with stretch big. Sometimes it feels like he's just playing off them a little bit too far. Because I mean, he can hang with pretty much any stretch big. Like, I don't think Brook Lopez is going to dust him off the dribble or anything like that. So I think that he can definitely close out a little bit harder on some of those. So that'd be like an on the court thing from Porzingis. I'd like to see him tighten up just a little bit. But like other than that, man, like it's just health. Otherwise, if he's healthy, like I think this team is just so good.
It's a good call, Jake. Like, the same way that the Celtics are going to relentlessly abuse mismatches on offense, and they've done that throughout the regular season, specifically with him. Other teams will do that to us in the playoffs. That's like the trademark. That's how the game changes, is if there's a mismatch, you find something you like, you're going to it until they prove they can stop it. And we've seen elite rim protectors struggle to stay on the floor. I'm thinking about like Rudy Gobert, if they can't move around in space. And I think Porzingis is better at that than a Gobert, for example. But I think it's a good call and something to watch out for, especially when you have an elite pick and roll ball handler like Shea in that game you mentioned. You look at the Eastern Conference, I mean, we run into Brunson, Mitchell, Dame, Maxey, like Halliburton. The East is loaded with good pick and roll ball handlers. So maybe that is a concern.
All guys who we can absolutely cook on their end defensively as well, which bodes well. So as we look to try and wrap up here, I think we've all got this energy and excitement, like we could just sit and talk Celtics for another hour or two. But time is finite, and we do have to wrap up. Drew, who else individually stands out to you as someone that you're highlighting in your mind as like you've got a particular focus for them on this stretch run?
The new guys, baby. The new guys. I got to read it. The Latvian story does end up somehow badly.
I didn't know.
Will fall in the river to death.
No, not.
A new chapter has been revealed.
As long as it happens after mid-June.
Yeah, that's right.
You fall into whatever river you want after Banner 18, Kristaps.
Yeah, just climb out in October again, please.
Yeah. So the guys I'm most excited for are the new guys. It's the easy answer, but I'm stoked to see Tillman and Springer. I don't have any inside info on when they might play. My guess is that we'll see them pretty soon after All-Star, at least I hope. I actually think that, Tillman, I think people expect him to play a decent amount, and I think he will, but Springer's the one that's kind of a question mark. I think he might play a decent amount. The guy is super talented. He was one and done at Tennessee, first round pick. Like there aren't that many guys. You hear about the really famous ones who go one and done and get drafted in the first round, but not that many dudes pull it off. And so I feel like Springer just never got a fair shake in Philly, and I don't really understand it. I called one of their summer league games this year, and he was super impressive. He was probably the best player on that team. He seems like a delightful dude. I walked up to him after a game, and this was in Brooklyn, and he was talking to somebody, and I just kind of interrupted. I'm like, "Hey man, sorry to bother you, but just want to introduce myself. I'm Drew. I call the games on TV on the road." And he I don't know. Some people just have an it factor, and I think you can kind of see it in the video where they all get Valentines, like custom Valentines. He's the last one in there. He's just got a great smile and a great energy about him. And so I'm really excited to see him fit in with the guys. And also I actually think he will play, and he's going to be a really valuable defender. Like, imagine if these are all guys who don't start, like Jaden Springer, Xavier Tillman. I think Pritchard's a pretty good defender, given his size deficiency. Mm-hmm. Like Nemish Keita protecting the rim. Hauser's an underrated defender. We all know why. Like, all those guys coming off the bench, pretty damn good defenders. Like, there's really no weak link on the team.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I would love Springer to be the guy that gets some minutes. We'll see.
It's hard with the spacing, because the spacing is one of our superpowers, and it's going to be tough if you have both those guys on the floor.
The thing is, if he is actually able to come in and be like a legit plus defender, then he can play, because you're going to be surrounded by legit offensive weapons across the board. And someone gets into foul trouble, maybe you chuck him on a Dame or whatever. I hope so. I'm like lower on his ability to stay on the floor offensively in the playoffs, but I'm huge on Tillman and what he can give us, but yeah.
I'm just rooting for the guy, to be honest, because multiple reasons. Didn't really get a chance in Philly after they drafted him in the first round. Fuck Philly.
Yes.
How great would it be if Springer turns into like a star for the Celtics?
Oh my God.
Dude, amazing.
Brad and the Celtics ownership of the Sixers continues.
Yes.
The Schadenfreude alone would be fantastic for
the
Springer.
aura boost.
Yes. And you mentioned Tillman. Like, I think playoff-wise, just as we look to wrap up here, his ability to switch on an Al Horford-ish level, although hopefully with younger legs. I know we've got comments here that, he's got some injury issues of his own, which is very much the case. Yeah. You mentioned Sam Hauser. I think the house trap is underrated. We've talked house money on the show before. The house trap, incredibly underrated just as far as how he can lock guys down sort of unexpectedly, given his glaring whiteness. And then Luke Cornett, how will he merge with this switching ability that Xavier Tillman adds? Luke Cornett, of course, the Corn Hub, as we call him on the show. Can he be consistently a Cornett positive, a Cornett neutral, or will he be a Cornett negative? It remains to be seen, but I do envision some minutes for Luke Cornett in the playoffs, Jake, particularly if drop coverage is what's needed defensively in a given series. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do think if Tillman's healthy, he's going to take all of Luke's minutes. Offensively, they're quite similar now that Luke doesn't shoot threes. The biggest difference being Tillman can't shoot free throws. That's really offensively their only difference. But he's really good on the short roll. Similar to the Corn Hub, he's been great with decision making and great passes out of like that's been awesome. A really underrated offensive player, just the way that he makes quick decisions. But Tillman has been good in those spots as well. His shooting numbers are skewed because the Grizzlies' offense has been so bad, but historically, good finisher at the rim, 51% in like floater range, and that's really all you need. And then when you add his like versatility defensively, I think there's a pretty good chance that by the time we get to the playoffs and Tillman's comfortable, we don't see Luke. That'd be my prediction.
So he will be a Cornett neutral after all.
Cornett, yeah.
All right. Look, we've got to leave it there. Drew, good luck for the remainder of the season, man. This was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate your time.
It's great to see you guys. This is always a blast whenever you want.
Yeah, likewise. All right, we will hold you to that. All right, we'll be back with another pod at the end of the week. Thanks again for listening or watching. Jake Eisenberg, love your work, mate. Until next time, go Celtics.
I love